Shocking announcement. The internet is making us hate ourselves. I'm waiting for the shock and awe to subside. Seriously though, these days it seems like you need the ability to radically accept yourself as is to even have a chance of drowning out the negativity. So lucky for you and me, I found the 5 books that you need to read to teach you exactly how to do that. Now, I'm not saying that you're gonna stop being hard on yourself. I am saying that you're gonna do the thing anyway. You're gonna wear the thing anyway, you're gonna try the thing anyway, and you're gonna forgive yourself for not being perfect anyway. So let's just get into the books that are gonna show you and me how to survive it all. In case you are new here, I am Amanda, this is Most Bookish, and we talk about all of our favorite books. And by all of our favorite books, I mean all of my favorite books. I try to talk about books that have a relationship with each other so that if it's your vibe, you have multiple options to choose from within that group. These books all happen, well, almost all of them are memoirs. They all happen to be by queer people. And as my shirt says, I have to read it. And as my shirt says, read queer all year. I can't talk today. I don't know what's wrong with me. Rhymed, guys. Have you guys subscribed yet? Have you liked? Because I don't want to talk about any of this stuff with you until you've done it. I'm lying. I still want to talk to you, but go do it. Do it, man. So when I say these books are going to help you survive, that can sound a little hyperbolic, but I actually mean it literally, because life is made up of seasons, and throughout those seasons, as we grow and change, you absolutely need some moral internal strengths to help you overcome those things, because life can often make you feel like you are drowning in that moment. So you're kind of like hopscotching from life pond to life pond and making it through as far as you get on this journey, like a video game. I'm dating myself. I said a video game, hop. And like, if you're young, you're like, what game is hopping? There were a lot of games where you would just The best way I feel like you can learn about how to get through these things is from stories, other people's stories, because FYI, most of us have never done this before, whatever it is that we're going through. And so if you can see somebody else's example and maybe take some tips, literal tips in some of these books from them that might give you tools to navigate what's happening or to understand better maybe why you're acting a certain way or to point you in the right direction, it can make things a lot easier. Representation matters. You can make it, that means I can make it too. So we're gonna go through 5 like lily pads of life that you might be hopping through. First one, a lot of times that can be difficult, is getting out from whatever circumstance that you were born into. We can't control where we started. We can't control all of the circumstances around our life when we're children. What we can control or have some control over is whether or not we get out. And a lot of that has to do with mindset. A lot of that has to do with the choices that we make. For some, it is much more harder than others because jumping from one place to another, depending on where you start, can be a lot harder for some of us than others. Any form of making it out alive counts. So I'm going to start with one of my favorites from this group, and it's Bad Fat Black Girl. It's by Cecily Bowen. I can't explain to you guys how much I love this book. I was reading a memoir by this white lady who was in sex work, and she was an ex-junkie. Oh, that's actually coming in the next one. And I swear I was reading the same book. They were completely different people. There's something about women, I feel like, who have been in the sex work world who really, if they have gotten to the point where they're comfortable telling their story publicly, they really don't give any fucks. I listened to this one on audiobook and I'm so glad that I did. This is a memoir, by the way. Cecily is a writer and she labels herself as a trap feminist. That's actually the subheading on this book. It is Bad Fat Black Girl Notes from a Trap Feminist. And when she was reading it, she made a lot of hip hop references and she talks about how trap music is feminist. It opens with a line from Yo Gotti, from a Yo Gotti song. And it says, "This for my classy bitches. Oh yeah, my ratchet bitches." Now, if you don't know what a trap song is, Cecily's going to give you the definition. Throughout the book, if she references something that she thinks you're not going to know what it is, she gives you the definition of it. And she does that throughout the book. So according to her, the definition of trap: Atlanta slang for the specific dwelling. Oh, and by the way, when she reads this in the audiobook, anytime she reads a definition that's in here, she goes from talking normally to this very Webster's Dictionary-ish tone. Trap: Atlanta slang for the specific dwelling or neighborhood where drugs, guns, or other illicit products or services are sold. The term is multifaceted and flexible. When used as a verb, trapping means hustling. I'm going to give you a little piece of what I wrote. This book is almost a trap music save my life ode to girls that get dismissed because they're too something. Too loud, too fat, too black, in Cecily's case. When it's all those things that they need to survive and all those things Cecily wants them to love about themselves the most. This book falls under the category of getting out because Cecily grew up in a circumstance where financially her family was not in the best place. The neighborhood that she was living in was the trap, and she didn't want, and her family didn't want her to end up there. But there was a part of her that to get out, or to get out of the difficult financial situation that people who live in the trap are in, you have an advantage because of all of the survival skills that you have acquired just through getting through your childhood. So she talks about bullies. She talks about the weird situations and dangerous situations that young men will put young women in and surviving those situations. She talks about looking around at her peers and understanding that while she doesn't want to end up in the same circumstances as some of them, she knows that that could be her easily. And there is no like good and bad because she's smart and other people aren't seen as being smart. She's saying all of them could have made it out. You're one bad decision away from either being stuck where you started or being successful like she's been. She's a writer. She, I believe, wrote Trina's memoir that came out. She references Trina a lot in here, so it's spectacular that she got to do that. This is one of the books that gets into definitions of particular terms, not just vernacular, but feminist terms and broader terminology that you need to acknowledge to understand what system you're living within so that you can possibly overcome or confront that system to get out. So she talks about misogynoir, a term coined by Black queer feminist Moya Bailey in 2008 to describe the specific form of discrimination experienced by Black women. It combines misogyny and noir, the French word for Black. Each chapter tells some of her story, but it also gives you actual advice for how to navigate yourself through these times. A great example is when she's talking about her journey to figuring out how to set standards. And that was out of the mentality and mindset that she had. She says, the standards I have for myself now involve respect. That means honoring my right to have emotions, different opinions, privacy, and the autonomy to make mistakes. Further down, she says, setting standards is figuring out the life you want to have. Maintaining standards is saying no to anything that isn't that. There were people who took up space in my life when my standards were different and they had to see themselves out when they weren't up for the new ones. But my standards don't change, and that's on period. That's what I encourage you to do. I'm not here to tell you what standards to set. I'm just telling you to have some and to hold to them. I gave this one 4 stars. The amount of radical self-acceptance you need to take the entire world's narrative about who you are and where you come from and what that means about who you get to become and ignore that. She didn't believe that she was going to be successful because she was special. She didn't believe she was going to be successful because she was better than anybody around her. She was very aware of the fact that people did not want to help her just off of the way that she looked before she even opened her mouth. And yet she just kept going. I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to get it anyway. And did she fumble? Yes. Did she make mistakes? Yes. Did she ever allow herself to write herself off? No. So if you are in that getting out stage, if you just need to figure out a way to believe a different story for yourself, that you can go a different way from where you came, this is the one for you. The second pivotal kind of turning point in life, I feel like can be once you've made it out, the scars that you've carried with you, kind of fighting out of that place. And for that, we're going to take some tips from the self-proclaimed badass, Bretman Rock. His memoir, You're That Bitch. The survival tips that we're getting from Mr. Rock are in the subheading of this book, which is You're That Bitch and Other Cute Lessons About Being Unapologetically Yourself. So talking about those scars, you've made it out, and amidst the joy of getting out into the world and getting to reform what you want your life to be, you're still carrying the weight of what came before. Bretman was born in the Philippines into another financial situation that was really difficult. He had a lot of family around him, and his community was very close-knit. And when he was young and he was more on the effeminate side for a young man, it was supported because he was surrounded by aunts, and also in Filipino culture, according to him, men were accepted as being beautiful in a way that American culture just doesn't embrace. So he talks about how luxurious his father's hair was, and the fact that he had other examples of masculine beauty that allowed him to embrace some of those more feminine aspects within himself. However, it wasn't perfect. There was a lot of colorism where he comes from. In his country, he's considered dark. And when his family finally emigrated over here, along with homophobia as he was getting older, he had to deal with his internalized bias against himself for his own skin color. And he comes to a country where skin color obviously is a big topic of conversation. It's a different conversation in the Philippines. He said that it's much more open for people to be skin whitening over there. So as he was becoming an internet sensation, because if you did not know, Bretman Rock is a very popular YouTube, social media star. He had an entire show on MTV. He's been doing this since he was a teenager, since the very beginnings of YouTube. And so he's been watching himself grow, and he and the rest of the world have been critical of him and the way he looks and the way that he acts for probably more than half of his life. He's had those feelings, he's had those thoughts of being not enough, and just done the damn thing anyway. This book is another one that has specific lessons. I'm gonna tell you about some of them. So he's hilarious, which is a known fact, but I didn't expect it to be as vulnerable of a story as it was. He talks about his family background. He talks about the colorism. He talks about coming over and being extremely poor and having all of these family members living in one room, and how when he got here, he realized that that wasn't normal to live that way. And that's while experimenting with clothes choices when he's going to school, eventually getting to the point of going to class in a face full of makeup. He is literally living with this massive baggage and trying to, like, I don't know if shed it or to paper over it with who he's becoming. He's still hilarious. For example, how to embody that feminine energy. Think with your heart and not your ween. Have more orgasms as you get older and demand them. You deserve to have fun in the bedroom just as much as any man. I think that the audiobook on this one would probably be spectacular too, because it's Bretman and he's just funny when he talks. So I gave this one 3.75 stars. It's another one that's about survival, acceptance, imperfections, and believing in yourself and never stopping. Now, the difference with him and Cecily is he believed he was fabulous from the beginning, honey. He believed he was going to be famous. He wanted to be famous so bad, and he just was not going to stop until he got there. I just read the heading on one that I am not going to show you guys. These are the little kind of tips sections that he has in here. And this one is tips on caring for your own hot bod. And the next chapter is called It's Not You, It's Your Penis. Oh my God. If you just want to laugh, it's really great. It's 3.75 because it's a pretty simple book, but it's such a quick read, and it's such a good read. It's like you finish reading them and you're like, I really can do whatever the hell it is that I want to do. Like, I can figure it out. These two were figuring it out, hustling and just doing it. I love it. We're going to go to a less hilarious memoir, and it's not really a memoir, it's actually diaries, but no less appropriate for the journey that we're taking. And so the next step in your journey, if you make it out, if you get through all of your baggage or figure out a way to carry it with you, you're in the world, you're just surviving, but sometimes the world's rules are not the rules you want to play by. And you started playing by those rules just to make it out. But once you're out there, you realize, I need to change this. I need to throw it all away. I need to do it over. This is my life, and I'm going to live it the way that I want. And we're going to learn that lesson from the diaries of Alice Walker. If you recognize that name, it's because Alice Walker is the author of the very famous book, The Color Purple, that was turned into a movie. The original starred Whoopi Goldberg. It was directed by Steven Spielberg. Oprah was in it. I think that was before Oprah was Oprah. Big O. Alice Walker has been writing, she's still alive, for, I believe, at this point, 60 plus years. She was a part of the civil rights movement early on. She started writing formally once she was in university. She was an essayist, a short story writer. She's written several novels. She's been as successful over the years as Toni Morrison, even though she's not spoken of in the same way that Toni Morrison is. Maybe that's because of the volume of novels that Toni wrote or the amount of acclaim that she had for a lot of her stories. I think that The Color Purple was more successful and more acclaimed than any of Toni Morrison's stories. But Toni Morrison had more works that were acclaimed over time. And she was a very vocal author. She was all over the place. Even though Alice Walker was involved in a lot of social causes, I feel like she didn't do as much of like the popular networking outside of when she was publishing books, because she was very private. She liked her retreat in California. She liked to be on her land, in her garden with her things. However, when she started, when she was in the 1960s, marching with Dr. King for the civil rights movement, she was very traditional. She ended up marrying a Jewish NAACP lawyer who was in the South at the time working with the civil rights movement. She had gone down there to lend whatever efforts she could and fell in love with him. And early in her writing and early in her diaries, she was being a wife and a mother. And it led to feelings of entrapment. It led to feelings of depression. She didn't know what was wrong with her life, but she knew that it was not the life that she wanted to be living, which was radical in the 1960s and 70s to be feeling that way. But taken care of by this man, her whole life full of taking care of a child. She even ended up tying her tubes because she knew she didn't want any more kids. So she throws that entire life away, gets a divorce, moves across the country, and starts an entirely different life. She has a lover for many years that is a man, but during those years, she's also experimenting with women, leading up to a relationship in the 90s with Tracy Chapman, who was a very famous singer at that time. Alice was, I think, 10 plus years her senior. By that point, all the rules were gone. Like Alice said, I'm going to live however the hell I want, and that's it. In the interim, she traveled to Cuba with a delegation that was supportive of Castro and his regime and socialism in general. She was very far left-leaning. She wrote for the feminist magazine Ms. and had a relationship with Gloria Steinem for many, many years. She lived fully the letting go of whatever rules it was that society wanted for her and doing exactly what it was that she wanted. And you see that over and over again in her relationships with people. She drew boundaries and she stuck to them. And she told them, I do not like this. I do not like how you're treating me. I don't like what's happening. And she would make her life choices and you have to live with them. She got better at that as she got older. That took practice. And there's a lot of going back into situations that are not good for her because she was young and learning those things. But it's a lifetime of saying no to the things that you do not want in your life, learning to say no, and learning to figure out what your yeses are. What did I write about Miss Walker? Let's see, guys. This book, besides the lessons that we're learning from Alice, was an amazing glimpse into the world of literary giants. Like, it spans the 1960s up to 2000, and at that time, she was very much within the writing community. She wasn't just a writer, she was in community with writers. She talks about Langston Hughes, James Baldwin, Toni Morrison, from the civic causes she was committed to the kind of popular world that she ended up in, like with Tracy Chapman, Quincy Jones. I gave the book 4 stars. It's a very different journey than reading a memoir, because a memoir is somebody telling you about their life journey, and diaries, which she kept for most of her life, is actually seeing that journey, like seeing the improvement or seeing her struggle with the way that her life was and saying, I don't know what it is about this that I don't like, but there's something that I have to change. And first fighting against certain things that felt acceptable, like the civil rights movement, and then fighting within certain things in her own life that maybe societally wasn't as widely accepted. And you see her pushing those boundaries little by little. And sometimes it would take literal decades, but she never stopped. I love going on that journey with her. The only thing that would detract from the diaries is that she's a little obsessive and she will go on about something for a decade. And so you maybe didn't need some of the whole story in some circumstances, I suppose. But she teaches you so much through the 60 years that this covers. So this was her as a young woman. I love this book. And then this is her not too long ago. This book was published, I think, in 2022. It says that there's going to be a part 2 that is her diaries after 2000. So when that comes out, I'm sure there's plenty more lessons that she will teach us. All right. So number 1 was getting out. Number 2 was surviving our scars. Number 3, Alice tells us exactly how to throw all the rules out and live your own version of life. Number 4, that I feel like can be a very difficult period within your life journey, is looking back on yourself, your family, the people that you've loved, the journey that you've been on with empathy. So often we live with those scars that we took with us and we beat ourselves up about it. We beat our families up about it. We can't see past the trauma to understand that there were good things and there were things that are still helping us survive. And to learn those lessons, we're moving to one of my favorite books I've read in the last decade or so. And that is Fun Home, a family tragicomic by Alison Bechdel. I think that's how, hopefully I'm saying her last name right. Alison is a writer and a cartoonist. I don't know if that's what it would be called. This is written in the format of a comic. I feel like it can't really be considered a comic because the amount of words that is in here it's more than any comic you're ever going to read. This is her memoir of growing up in her family that opens once she's a young adult after her father has died. And her family is privately discussing whether or not they think he killed himself. He was hit by a truck. Not long before he's died, Allison has told her parents that she's gay. And according to her, they did not take it very well. At that point, her mom lets her know that her father has been having affairs with men for many years. She ends up being very shocked and having a conversation with her dad a bit and spending some time with him a bit where they touch on some things throughout their life. He was a very learned man, if you want to call it that. He had a library and he influenced his daughter to read quite a bit. And after she finds the stuff out, she asks him at a certain point, like, did you give me X book because you suspected? And he was like, I don't know, but maybe there were signs. And there was so much animosity she had for her dad at the beginning of all of this about how him keeping so much of himself hidden away from his family made her ability to accept herself and be open very difficult throughout her life. But as she revisits her relationship with him throughout the story, she realizes that there was actually so much that he was giving to her without her knowing it. Even though he didn't make it, whether on purpose or not, he gave her enough of a foundation for her to be able to make it. I love this story, not just because of the drawings, which are absolutely spectacular, but there are so many literary references throughout this entire thing. It makes you want to go find the books that she's talking about and go read them. Pictures in here of the library that's like jam full of books. Maybe that's why I love this book. Hashtag goals. She talks a lot about psychology. She talks about the nature of some of the writers and what they were hiding, which I love a story behind a story. If you are trying to survive and shoring up the tools that you learned from your family through your life, this is a great read. But also, if you are just a massive book nerd, this is also a great read for that too. What I wrote about this book. I said, the irony of her father guiding her to this place of self-discovery while retreating further into denial and a hidden life is so sad and touching at the same time. As he continues to lose himself, he's saving her. It's about family, it's about queerness, it's about the secrets that are kept, it's about surviving those secrets and coming to terms with the secret keepers. And it's also about how our loved ones can save us and drown us. Very feminist book. All of these are very feminist books. I gave it 4.5 stars because it really is just so spectacular. She also has another book. I don't think you guys can see it up there. It's somewhere. No, it's on the next shelf. It's called Are You My Mother? And it's the story of her and her mom. And that one's really good too. But this one's my favorite. We've made it to the end of our journey. And some of us will not reach this end for a long, long time. Some of us have gotten to this place already. And that, number 5, for our journey of survival is going to be Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. It is the only fiction book out of this batch. It's the story. It's an odd story. So I'm going to read you guys exactly what I wrote about what the story is. It's a kind of thriller-esque, suspenseful lit fic that unfolds the story of Leah, who is a marine biologist that came back from a deep dive changed. Her wife, Mary, narrates the strange new life she's living with Leah. For example, baths for hours, drinking salt water, skin changing and bleeding, while we go back in time to have Leah narrate what happened down there to her and her crew. The chapters go back and forth between their two stories. It's so haunting. And in the beginning, you're just really invested into this whole what happened. Like, what happened on this voyage? What is happening to this woman? The allusion to the company that sent them to this dive is like so suspect. The company's not answering the phone. It's a very strange, like, what's going on? And then as you go through it with them, the what's going on and the trying to find out what's happening slowly falls away, and it is just Mary losing her wife to whatever this thing is. Throughout that story, she's also getting kind of flashbacks of having lost her mom to cancer. And even though this is a very weird version of losing someone, it's still all the same feelings. It's still memories of this person when things were okay, when things were normal. It's still frustration as somebody gets sick with this not having been the life that you wanted with them, the life that you signed up for, going back and forth with wanting to be mad at them versus being mad at the fact that you can't stop whatever's happening. And then ultimately realizing that whatever this new life is just what you have to live with. And while that happens in love relationships, in this particular book, you know, it's from the aspect of a love relationship. It's basically saying that whatever the road is that you end up on with someone that you care about, you don't know where it's going to lead, and wherever it ends up at, that's where you are, and you have to live with those things. However difficult it is, whatever pain comes with it, and within that, a new normal emerges, and suddenly you're thinking about the errand you have to run or the person's phone call that you want to return, and how life somehow goes on despite the madness. It was really unexpected. This story was not what I thought it was going to be. It's a pretty short story, and I really enjoyed it. I really, really enjoyed it. I wish I had read it last. That would have been a good ending to this. I think I read it first. These are all really different books. It seems like they don't fit, but I swear they really do. I gave this one a 4.25. It's one of the best books I've read all year. There are parts of it that are so quirky and weird. Before her wife comes back from that trip, she's missing for, like, the crew is missing for months. And she would go on this internet group. Like, she felt so alone because she didn't know where to go. She couldn't go to, like, grief groups because they were missing. They hadn't told them that they had died. And she couldn't go to, like, missing groups because they knew where they were. Technically, they weren't missing. They were just at the bottom of the ocean. There are a lot of things that I tabs here. There's a lot about, like, realizing you lose people. So when she finds this internet group, since she can't find a group to fit into, she finds an internet group that is people pretending like their spouses, their husbands have been lost in space. I don't know if something like this actually exists, but I really hope it does. And they're, like, fighting with each other because one of the women on the board, like, one of the women on the message board questions the narrative of somebody else's message. And the woman's like, my husband in space has been gone for 7 years. No sign, no contact, nothing. Crew presumed dead. No hope of rescue. Think about that before you tell me my story is contrived. Oh, that's hilarious. And somebody else post, check the community guidelines. Don't come for other people's stories. Offer the same respect you would expect. Have grace in space. This is just... It's a quirky ass book, but I love it. And then when she's at this, like, turning point where her wife is doing all this weird stuff. She's wanting to sit in the bath all day long. She's wanting to drink salt water, which doesn't seem right. She has no explanations for why any of these things are happening to her. And Mary, the wife who wasn't in the ocean, is, like, so fed up for the first half of the book. But things have gotten so bad that she just realizes it doesn't matter. She just wants to take care of her. And she says, I think we should take you back to the bathroom, and helps her get back into the damn tub and sit in there. And that's their turning point. At a certain point, she says, it is easier, I guess, to believe that life is inexhaustible. Not so much that its opportunities are vast or that one's personal dreams can be reached at any age or season, but rather to believe that every dull or daily thing you do will happen again any number of times. To stamp a limit on even the most tedious of things, the number of times you have left to buy a coffee, the number of times you will defrost the fridge, is to acknowledge reality in a way that amounts to torture. After all, why would it help to be shown the mathematics of things when instead we could simply imagine that whatever time we have is limitless? It's such a good book. Read it. All right, that's been the journey for you guys. I feel like there's something in here for everybody. Don't you guys tell me that you didn't find something for you. There was the trap feminist who taught us how to get out. There was the baddest who taught us to get through our scars. There's Miss Walker who taught us to throw it all away and do it however the hell you want. There's the fun house that taught us that there were lessons that we were ignoring that helped us survive all along. And then there is this haunting love story about letting go of what you can't control and cherishing the time that you have with the people you love, because we're all on borrowed time. And if you can get anything from any of these books, it is that there are reasons to be hopeful. You can make it through. The internet is not a real place, even though you're seeing me on the internet right now. You can get things from the internet that will help you survive. But remember that it's the actual relationships in your life that are the real ones. I love you guys so much. Thank you for spending more time with me again. I hope that at the very least, you laughed out loud at one of these books. If you read it, if you read one of them, let me know. If you have read one of these, let me know. If you've read one of these but you haven't checked out the audiobook, it's worth it. The audiobook for Gathering Blossoms for the Diaries, I don't love. I tried it. The thing is that there are massive amounts of footnotes in this book because she refers very casually to people's names. And so it's constantly having to say that Bob is blah, blah, blah. That format in an audiobook, like bouncing from the diary to the footnote, will drive you absolutely insane. I couldn't do it. The next video is going to be about all of the books that my husband has bought me and me finally reading them, because he has accused me of reading all of the books in the world except for the ones that he bought me. Until the next time, book friends, read queer all year, and hopefully you come back to the next one. Bye. Subscribe, like, come back. It's such a good time over here.